Hey Rock Buddies, Papa here. Hope you guys are doing well. Today we're going to talk about felsic igneous rocks and their metamorphic rock equivalents, and we will have lots of photographs and a review on where they all come from. So stay tuned, and if you like this video and it's useful, please subscribe. That's how I know I'm putting out good material for you guys. So here we go. Okay guys, so we're talking about felsic igneous rocks. We already know that igneous rocks are rocks that come right from the mantle by the processes of rifting, subduction, and crashing. So felsic igneous rocks are light in color, light in weight, and have low melting points. That means it doesn't take a lot of heat to melt felsic igneous rocks. Felsic igneous rocks, and any felsic rocks for that matter, are high in quartz, high in potassium feldspar, medium in sodium feldspar, medium in biotite, and medium in muscovite. Remember in the video on subduction when we talked about how subduction creates these volcanic island chains and chains of volcanic mountains that have stratovolcanoes? Well, felsic igneous rocks are the rocks that are light-colored that accumulate at the very top of these stratovolcanoes, oftentimes plugging the top of the volcanoes until the pressure builds and there's a huge blowout explosion. The other place where we found felsic igneous rocks being produced was during continental crashing, where the crashing continent pushes down on the host continent, pushing the continental crust, which is usually granite or granite gneiss, which are felsic rocks, into the mantle where they remelt and usually form granite, a felsic igneous rock. The most felsic igneous rocks I know about are the tuff and pumice that's blown out of the top of the Strato volcano. Tuff and pumice are composed mainly of quartz and potassium feldspar. Here's a piece of felsic tuff that was blown out of a stratovolcano. And felsic tuff is light in weight, very light in weight, because it's full of tiny little air bubbles that were injected into it when it was blown out of the volcano. Looking at this piece of tuff, you can see the yellowish hunks of what are mostly potassium feldspar, but there's probably quartz in there too. But this is, I would say this is a feldspar-rich felsic tuff. Here's a really cool piece of tuff that's called pumice, and it's also called volcanic ash. This piece I collected from a town in Idaho called Ashland, Idaho, which is covered with this stuff blown out of one of the ancient Yellowstone volcanic eruptions of many thousand years ago. Can you see the little gray hunks of quartz crystals in there? And that's the thing about tuff. Usually you can find quartz crystals in it. They're very tiny in some examples of tuff. And in this example, you can also see that kind of a tannish colored fibery stuff. That's spun out feldspar, I do believe. When this was blown out of the volcano, it was puffed full of so much air and gas. It just spun out this feldspar in this cool looking stranded material. This is really very light. It probably will float on water. It's so light, very low density pumice. Okay guys, so now let's look at the metamorphic versions of felsic igneous tuff. So what causes igneous rocks to become metamorphic rocks? Well, the main thing that does that is continental crashing, where one continent crashes into another, pushing that continent down and burying deeply the igneous rocks that are there. That applies tremendous pressure and heat to them and transforms them into metamorphic rocks. Here's some very quartz-rich metamorphic tuff or Metatuff. And see, it looks like just a giant hunk of quartz. How do I know this is not sandstone or quartzite? Well, one reason is I don't see sand grains or any trace of sand grains. It's just a massive quartz. Also, I collected this from the Carolina terrain, which was microcontinent called the Acadian microcontinent that crashed into North America during Devonian time and then very conveniently slid down southwest along the Brevard Fault Zone to very close to where I live so I could go and collect rocks there. Wasn't that nice? Carolina terrain rocks are all metamorphic rocks, so I know it can't be sandstone. That is a sedimentary rock that's not metamorphic. Also, the place where I collected it shows a lot of Metatuff on the geologic map. Here's another piece of Metatuff, also from the Carolina terrain. This one looks like it has Feldspar and quartz in it, but mostly Feldspar, and I would think that would be potassium Feldspar. So you've probably figured out that when it comes to tuff and Metatuff, you can have versions that are very rich in quartz and versions that are very rich in Feldspar and versions that are rich in both. But we don't find a lot of biotite, black biotite in tuff, because tuff is the most felsic of igneous rocks that I know about. After all the felsic tuff is blown out of a stratovolcano, then we get eruptions of felsic lava called dacite. And I'm thinking that dacite lava has maybe a little bit more sodium-rich feldspar in it than tuff. After the felsic tuff is blown out, next comes the dacite lava. Dacite lava has lots of quartz and therefore it holds together tightly. It does not want to flow, but it does flow, and it blobs out of the volcano like blobs of cheap toothpaste. Dacite lava is made of a very fine matrix of quartz and potassium-rich and sodium-rich feldspar with larger pieces of all those minerals embedded in it. Here you can see small white crystals of feldspar. Here's the metamorphic version of dacite lava. Metadacite it's called. Here you can see the whitish crystals of feldspars, which would be potassium and sodium-rich feldspars, and reddish and grayish crystals of quartz. In this version of metadacite, also from, you guessed it, the Carolina terrain, you have grayish hunks of quartz and whitish hunks of feldspar, all embedded in a very fine grain matrix of the same minerals. We've been looking at felsic igneous rocks that have mostly quartz and feldspars in them. Now we're going to add a little bit of biotite, which has some iron and some magnesium in it, and some muscovite to the mix, and see what kind of felsic igneous rocks we get. After the felsic tuff has been blown out of the stratovolcano, and after the dacite lava has blobbed out of the stratovolcano like cheap toothpaste, we still have felsic rock inside that volcano that never comes out. And it is called, guess what? Granite. And of course, as we have already said, granite is also produced when two continents crash into each other. Granite is an intrusive Felsic igneous rock, which just means it stays underground. Here's one of my favorite kinds of granite. This is called granite pegmatite. You can easily see the big white crystals of feldspar and the gray crystals of quartz, and also some black crystals of biotite in there. There's probably some very small mirror-like crystals of muscovite in there too. And quite often with granite pegmatite, you get very large crystals of muscovite. Granite pegmatite is really just granite with very big crystals. But how do those big crystals form? Well, if in the molten mix you have a lot of volatile elements, which means just very reactive elements like lithium, then and a lot of water also, these things facilitate the development of very large crystals. Now let's say in addition to that you have exotic elements like beryllium, then you can get some really cool minerals like beryl, aquamarine, and even emerald. Here's some granite, a felsic igneous rock. This specimen is from Siloam, Georgia, and it has big crystals of feldspar that you can see. You can also see the gray quartz and black biotite in there. Here's yet another example of granite. This is Elberton granite from the Elberton, Georgia granite quarry. This is unweathered granite, fresh from the ground. And here you can see, I can see black biotite crystals, whitish feldspar crystals, and gray or clear quartz crystals. Here's that same Elberton granite, but this specimen has been well weathered. However, you can still see the minerals, yellowish and whitish feldspar, gray or clear quartz, and black biotite. There is some little bit of muscovite in there too. Yet another example of weathered granite. This granite has a lot of red in it, and that's likely iron that was oxidized to a red color during the weathering process. Can you pick out the minerals? Give it a try. Hey Rock Buddies, it's a gorgeous early spring day here at the Minimalist Cottage. Let me show you around a little bit. And by the way, I do hope you guys are having a really nice, very early springtime too. And now let's take a look at what happens to granite when it is metamorphosed into granite gneiss. Here's a specimen of granite gneiss. This is right from a quarry, so it hasn't been weathered at all. It has the same minerals as granite: quartz, potassium feldspar, sodium feldspar, biotite, and some muscovite. But what do you notice about the configuration of these minerals? You got it, it's the stripes. The process of metamorphism causes the light and dark minerals to separate into bands, and if metamorphism continues, those bands can become wavy from the intense pressure. Here's some weathered granite gneiss. This is how it's going to look in the field. Same minerals as granite, you can see them. And you can also see the metamorphic banding here as well. So okay, Rock Buddies, that's the story on felsic igneous rocks and their metamorphic equivalents. I hope you liked it. In future videos, we'll be talking about intermediate igneous rocks and their metamorphic equivalents, and mafic igneous rocks, their metamorphic equivalents, and finally, ultramafic igneous rocks and their metamorphic equivalents. So I hope you liked it. Hope it was educational. Please give me a subscribe. And I love comments of any kind. Doesn't have to be about rocks. It can be about anything that's on your mind. So here's Papa saying, happy rock hunting, and you guys have a great day. Papa out.